How much alcohol was I actually drinking? So I struggled with my alcohol for nearly 10 years, and during that time I was pretty much a daily drinker the entire time, but the amounts of alcohol I drank varied day to day depending on if I was working or if it was a day off or something like that. But there were periods of times where I drank strictly hard alcohol like vodka, and I did that honestly for vanity reasons because it was the lowest alcoholic beverage I was aware of at the time. And so I don't know exactly how much vodka I was drinking because I was not measuring it, but there were days, I had my own company at the time, and there were days where I was drinking starting at noon and just pouring a shot of vodka in a Rockstar of all things, and it was honestly probably a double or a triple, and I would sip on that, and then I would have more once that was over, and just kind of keep the drinks going throughout the day. There were times where I would drink so much, I'd be at the beach, for example. I often drank at the beach, and I would pass out in the sand. To be honest, that happened many times where I'd drink and get so drunk that I'd pass out and wake up hours later with a sunburn. I look back on those now, those days, and kind of shudder, but it's just the truth. So when I really started drinking heavily, vodka was a part of my daily life, but I honestly would drink anything as long as it had alcohol in it. As the years went on, I did start to drink more wine just because I felt like it was maybe more sophisticated and I felt less bad about drinking tons of wine. A bottle of wine was pretty standard for me most nights of the week. Oftentimes I would open up a second bottle, or what else I would do is I had whiskey stashed away in my cabinets that when my husband wasn't looking, I would pull from the whiskey because I'd be drinking the bottle of wine and I wouldn't want him to know that I was having more than a bottle of wine because my husband does not have a drinking problem, so I had to hide it from him. So I'd be sipping on the wine and he'd run off to the bathroom and I'd run into the kitchen and like pull from my whiskey bottle. So again, I wasn't neatly measuring shots, but most nights I would drink to like a brownout or blackout. But bottle of wine was pretty standard. If I was able to stop at that bottle, that was kind of me exercising self-control, if you will. So then on my days off, I loved to day drink. I was somebody who anytime I was, not working, or even if I was working and I could get away with drinking during the day on my lunch break or something, I love to have drinks during the day. So on my days off, I would typically start drinking at around 11 a.m. Usually I would have white wine or vodka or something like that, and I would just drink all day long until I was super intoxicated in the evening and kind of, again, passing out. So during my days off and the days where I was day drinking, I could probably easily have 3 bottles of wine in one day. And again, oftentimes I was having wine and then taking shots of liquor when my husband wasn't looking. Another thing that I love to do in order to hide the alcohol from my husband is I would have a thermos of like a hot tea that's a really strong, like a chai cinnamon type blend, actually a really good tea. But I would pour whiskey in there and I would take that, and he would think that I'm just drinking this hot tea, but he didn't know that there were a couple of shots of whiskey in it as well. I was definitely someone who struggled with sneaking my drinking. I loved to sneak alcohol and get away with it. And so that was kind of the part of the game that I played with my alcohol use disorder. And so there were often times where I was stashing whiskey or vodka or something in a discreet place and people wouldn't know that I was drinking it. And I loved being able to drink it and get away with the fact that people didn't necessarily know that I was drinking, though I'm sure some people could tell. So that's a little bit about how much and how often I was drinking. I think many of us who struggle with alcohol, we don't necessarily keep track. Maybe we don't want to know how much we're drinking, but it was a lot of alcohol that I was consuming on a daily basis for nearly 10 years. But as many of you know, when I started on the Sinclair Method in 2017, it just changed everything about my relationship with alcohol. For the first time in my life, I started to see myself have more control when I drank. I wasn't blacking out or having hangovers anymore, and I was having alcohol-free days that just felt natural and effortless, like days where I just didn't feel like drinking. And I also noticed one of the biggest gifts of this method was that my mental preoccupation or my craving for alcohol just started to fade away to where I wasn't thinking about drinking or, planning my drinking session anymore at all. I just, through this treatment over the course of a year, I got completely free of my alcohol addiction. If you want to learn more about this treatment, you can check out my other videos or the link in my profile as well.